Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome in to the 4-3 show. We have one very loaded show for you guys tonight. I'm Ryan Blank. I'm alongside Parker Dunn, Pat Fortuna, and Dominic Stern. Gentlemen, we just won a softball game. We kicked butt. How we doing? How we feeling?
Well, how do I feel? I shut out some scrubs and I also hit a walk-off grand slam, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Only
well,
one
technically it was a walk-off grand slam because they called game when you hit it.
Yeah, it was a mercy rule. Hey, I hit it and we walked off the field, Pat. Walk off.
That is a good point.
Pat, you struck out, but you made contact the second time.
So did you.
Yeah, you
Hold
struck
on,
out.
no, I struck out on a foul ball, okay?
That's
It's
a
different.
Regardless, you
strikeout.
struck out.
It's a strikeout.
I came back and had 2 hits.
Bad
You
contact.
did. Yes, you did.
Well, I only had 2 at-bats, and I 0 for 2.
Yep. Parker,
I got on base both times. I finally got one into the outfield. That was nice.
This
I
takes my position for 1 inning, and the first time anybody throws it to the catcher perfectly, he makes a play at the plate.
No, Bobby had one too, but they called him dude safe. I couldn't believe that.
Parker.
yeah,
had
that's
one.
true. That's true. But hold on. That was a great throw for me,
It was
I must say.
beautiful. It made my job easy.
It was. I don't know why I don't get those throws when I'm at catcher.
I didn't have to do anything.
I'm sorry, Pat. I haven't gotten the opportunity to really throw it to you. Next time when I get the chance, I will throw it to you. You will catch it.
Usually it's like Jack Wu hucking it 100 feet over my head from the outfield.
All right, gentlemen, let's get into it. Let's start with the NFL. First thing we got to talk about, Dak. 4 years, huge deal, 160, if I remember correctly. What do we think?
I'm not going to dwell on this too much because, a lot of people know what happened. If you're watching this, I assume you probably know what's up. I like Dak Prescott a lot. I'm happy for him. He is the piece that hopefully can bring this Cowboys team that has been so unlucky in playoffs or in even making playoffs. Hopefully he can push them a little bit further than they've been in the past.
Right, and the 160 million, but it was a signing bonus of 66 million. So going against the cap, it's only really a 4-year, under $100 million contract. So the dollar figures of it are actually very friendly for the Cowboys in terms of football-wise. And, of course, Jerry Jones, he owns a $5 billion franchise. He can afford to throw away $60 million of just cash out of his pocket to help his team win. Now, the rest of their team is still pretty hot garbage, but Dak Prescott is a very talented quarterback. Whether or not he's healthy or not is going to greatly affect his play in the 2021 season. But if he is healthy, top 10 quarterback, easily borderline top 5.
Yeah, Dak's a really good quarterback. There's no arguing what he's able to do. He was on record to crush the single-season passing yards record before that gruesome injury. So it's big to see how he comes back and what he looks like. I'm sure you'll get a good Dak Prescott out of him if you're Dallas Cowboys fans. So ultimately, the biggest thing with this is we're seeing the rollover effect of the Mahomes contract. A lot of guys are going to get a ton of money. He was looking for a huge contract, and he got it, so congrats to him for pulling it off.
Yeah, Dak deserves his contract. He's a top 10 quarterback, and people try to say he's overrated. He's not. He was
Dak's
going
top 3 quarterback when healthy.
He was going to crush that single season record before that injury. He was throwing the ball a ton because the Cowboys were getting down in a lot of games, but still, he was throwing the ball well. And I think Dak has the ability to lead this team to the playoffs and to get them a run. It's that the defense for the Cowboys has been the issue. He's got the offense. The offense runs well with him. And you saw what happened when Andy Dalton took over. Wasn't really there. The offense took a horrible hit, and it's going to happen when you lose a top 10 quarterback. So I think this is a great deal for Dak and the Cowboys to lock up their star quarterback, and it gets Dak the financial security after a very gruesome injury. Next up, Drew Brees officially retired, and he is joining NBC as a broadcaster, which was announced today. What do you guys think about him retiring and having him as a broadcaster for the future?
Well, he probably should have retired this past year, but he also was very gracious in taking and restructuring his deal to a league minimum deal and saving the Saints around $20 million against the cap. So very classy move by him there. But one of the all-time greats, probably a top 10 quarterback of all time. It was time to hang up the spikes. I mean, the past 2 years he had dealt with injuries, and it was very clear that he was not the same quarterback. Wasn't able to throw the ball as far down the field with as much success in these past couple of seasons, and that really limited the offense and really put a lot of weight on some of the other players like Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas on that offense to produce even more. And, of course, it banged up Michael Thomas this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of the effects of that on Alvin Kamara in the near future.
I mean, yeah, good on Drew Brees for an incredible career, but, like, I'm more upset that Taysom Hill is going to be their future. I'm less upset that Drew Brees is retired. Unless they start Jameis Winston next year, then I think this is very good for them if they do. So they just extended him today. But if Jameis Winston stays on the bench, then I am going to be very upset with the New Orleans Saints organization because there is no player I hate in the NFL more than I hate Taysom Hill. So,
well, following up that, when it comes to Drew Brees, he's one of the greatest to ever do it. Arguably one of, if not the most accurate passes I've ever seen, especially from a
Parker,
complete.
who's the greatest to ever do it?
What?
Who's the greatest to ever do it?
Not now. Not now. We're not doing this.
I'm not. I want to talk about March Madness.
Yes, because you're wrong.
No, not at all. But I'm not going to get into it again. So, but like I was saying, Drew Brees is one of the best ones to ever play that position. Pleasure to watch from every fan's perspective. But yeah, it was the right time for him to hang up the cleats. He didn't have the same stuff, and we even saw it the year before last. So you can kind of see the trickle-down effect. It was a matter of time at that point. Father Time caught up to him. And I think that it's good that he's able to go out after an incredible career. So I applaud him for everything that he did in his 20 years in the NFL.
Drew Brees is one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. He is. And what he has done and what he means to Louisiana is unparalleled. He means everything to them with everything he's done after Hurricane Katrina and in the communities. But here's some stats that you have to just be amazed by from Drew Brees. He's second all-time in passing touchdowns, and he's first in passing yards, completions, and completion percentage. He's an all-time great. He has one Super Bowl. The one thing that I think sucks is that he doesn't have an MVP. And there's an argument that he could have had one, and it doesn't matter. This is a man that really turned around that Saints organization, got them a Super Bowl, and he's been their star. And this is the right time for him to do it. The past 2 years, he's had bad injuries. It was the thumb injury, then the ribs injuries. It happens. And you expected it after the playoff loss. You had to expect him to retire, had to expect him to not – his heart wasn't in it anymore to play. You saw the reactions after the Saints lost, him kissing the field goodbye. It was obvious that there was at least a chance of him retiring. But I love that he's going to be a broadcaster on NBC. I think he's going to be terrific. He loves the game. He knows the game so well. I think he's going to be a terrific broadcaster. Now let's move on to some free agency stuff. The Buccaneers have officially brought nearly everyone back. They extended Tom Brady with a one-year extension. Then they bring back Levante David. They get Shaquille Barrett back. They tag Chris Godwin and re-sign Gronk. The team is in on them going back to the Super Bowl and winning 2 in a row. Do you guys have anything you want to say about anything that the Bucs have done, especially with Shaquille Barrett getting $72 million?
He deserved it, and Chris Godwin deserved the money. I'm not exactly sure how they managed to do it, but salary cap has been in the past couple of years, especially exemplified by Ryan and I's team. It's very, very easy to manipulate it and get around it. And the Buccaneers are in a similar position where the Chiefs and the Rams have been in the past couple of years, making the Super Bowl and having to adapt because you had a good roster and you got to try and fit in the pieces to keep that championship level team. Something the Patriots have done really well for a very long period of time, and it finally caught up to them last year. But we'll talk about them in a little bit. So the Bucs did everything they had to do. They're going to be just as good as they were this past season.
Pat, do you have anything you want to say?
What teams had the best offseason? We'll talk about that next.
We're talking. Okay.
Okay, Pat, you segued into it. Very opinionated. But the New England Patriots have been extremely active so far. Let's look at what they've done this offseason.
You don't even have to say it. I'll just talk about it when I talk about it. Listen,
Well, you're the only one who's going to talk about it. This
Right,
is your team.
okay.
Go ahead and recap everything the Patriots have done.
we are back, baby. We are back. Do not be shocked if next year the AFC East is the most competitive division in football. If the Jets make a big move, I think they'll be at least able to, go 6-10. But as for the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Patriots, we are back. Kendrick Bourne on offense. Are you kidding me? Nelson Aguilar, who just got off a career year. Well, he's only played like 3 years. But we extended Cam Newton. This will be his year to prove it. We're going to ship N'Keal Harry out. I'd bet money on it, right? And our defense got so much better. Judon's a Patriot. Mills is a Patriot. Let's go. Let's go.
What about trading for Trent Brown, Pat?
Oh, yeah, that's old news. But, yeah, that's exciting, too. I'm happy to have him back. He's won a Super Bowl with us.
All right, Pat. That's all we need to hear because now you think the Patriots are back. Do you think they win the AFC East this year?
I don't know if they win the AFC East, but they're good enough to be competitive for it.
They're a playoff team. They're a playoff team.
I agree. I think they'll be in the playoffs as a wild card.
And then however
All right.
the dominoes fall out there is where they fall.
Yeah. All right. Right now, I'm just going to go through a list of notable signings that came from today, and then we'll move on to March Madness. First off, Romeo Okwara re-signed with the Lions. Kevin Zeitler, who was cut by the Giants, is now a Raven. Kyle Juszczyk gets a new deal, 5 years, $27 million with the 49ers. Aaron Jones gets a new deal, 4 years, $48 million. The Texans made a trade with the Dolphins, but it wasn't for Deshaun Watson. The Texans traded Bernard McKinney to the Dolphins for Shaq Lawson. John Johnson is leaving the Rams and is signing with the Browns, but the Rams retained Leonard Floyd and signed him to a 4-year deal. Dom, do you have anything you want to say about those moves?
Russell Wilson is crying somewhere. That's all I got to say. He's about to get body bagged around in the backfield again by the Rams. So, yeah.
Yannick
I was going to say
Ngakwe-
another word, but I had to. This is a college radio station, FCC radio.
Hey, I do it all the time.
This is why Dom is going places and Pat is not.
Well, I don't have to go anywhere in the journalism field.
Yeah,
That
I
is
was.
You're our uncensored.
Yeah, I'm the flavor. The spice.
Yannick Ngakwe signs with the Raiders. Ronald Darby signs with Denver, and Denver retained Shelby Harris. Parker, what do you think of Denver's moves today?
Well, I love the Shelby Harris one. They, dating back to last season, got him on the 1 year to prove himself contract, see if he can sustain his play. Because, of course, before the breakout season that he had, he was passed around the league a lot. He was with the Raiders before he was with Denver. He was a former 7th-round pick. He had been cut multiple times, but he's really stepped up his game. So I think that that's huge for their interior D-line. They needed to address the cornerback position with A.J. Boye being released. Ronald Darby fits that need. But one thing that came in this, the collateral damage, was Kareem Jackson's team option was declined. With his age and contract, I get it. Like, it makes sense. It just is a bummer to see one of the key pieces throughout a defense and a team that wasn't going anywhere the last couple seasons, but he was at least one of those guys that you knew what you're going to get out of him. He had a breakout couple seasons with the Texans, I should say. It's almost like the Rangers, baseball season looming. But with the Texans, with them, he was very good. Denver got him. It's going to be a bummer to not see him in a uniform anymore with them. And he was also one of the guys that was reaching out to Deshaun Watson. He's like, come to Denver, should they trade for you, make sure to allow it so that you can be part of the team. That's no longer going to be the case. But it's going to be a bummer. But overall, though, I like the moves. I think they make a lot of sense, and they always have to have money available to extend Justin Simmons because they tagged him, and that's the most significant priority for them going forward.
Continuing with our free agents, Bud Dupree heads to the Titans on a huge deal. Corey Davis and Carl Lawson go to the Jets. Jets trying to beef up and not be the laughingstock of the league. Trey Hendrickson is on the move from the Saints as he signs with the Bengals. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, the ageless wonder, is on to a new team in the Washington football team. And lastly, the Chiefs made a move, adding Joe Thuney, who was a former Patriot, on a 5-year, $80 million deal. And I'm just going to say a few words. Love it. The Chiefs had a rough week with offensive line releasing both Schwartz and Fisher.
Now you guys have 3 O-linemen.
But now the Chiefs have 3 O-linemen, which is great. The guards are set. Joe Thuney's one of the best guards in the game. In the past 2,033 snaps, he's only allowed 3 sacks. He's been terrific. He's been a beast throughout his career, and I'm so excited to have him. And Patrick Mahomes is happy, so Kansas City is happy. All right, Dom, I'm going to let you say it.
Wait. Real quick. Can we talk about my favorite free agent signing of the day? Real quick.
Fine.
Fitzmagic to the football team.
He said that. That was the last one he said.
Didn't hear it.
Hey, Pat, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen twice as much. Oh.
Did he just leave?
Why did Pat leave? Man, he must hate me already.
Well, someone's trying to snipe him.
Wow. Welcome back, Pat. Where'd you go?
I took a walk. I took a break.
Dom, I'm going to let you say it. What month is it?
This is March, baby. Let's go.
It is March Madness. But before we get into it, 2 coaches in the Big Ten were fired today. Archie Miller at Indiana and Richard Pitino at Minnesota. If you guys can think of any, do any candidates pop off in your head to who could replace either coach at either school?
Well, Rick Pitino could be certainly a candidate coming from Iona. I don't think he wants to coach at a higher level. Again, I think he likes where he's at in a mid-major. He could certainly be a candidate. John Beilein can make his return to the Big Ten. Last year was the coach of the Cavaliers. This year was an analyst on the Big Ten Network. Obviously coached the Michigan Wolverines for a very long time, led them to the national championship. He's a fantastic coach. Steve Alford coached at UCLA a couple of years ago, got fired, then is now the coach at the University of Nevada, and hasn't had too much success there to start. Had a very young team. He's still trying to build his program, but he did play at Indiana, so he could certainly go there. Brian Dutcher, unfortunately, is a very, very capable candidate for the Minnesota job. His dad coached there. He played there. And his buyout, if he is to go to Minnesota, is only $1 million as opposed to the $8 million buyout it would be to go anywhere else. So the San Diego State fan in me is praying that that's not where he ends up going, but it certainly is a possibility. Scott Drew, coach of Baylor, obviously has put himself on the map with what he's done at Baylor, taking them deep into the tournaments. Very good team last year. Really good team again this year. And then his also brother, Bryce Drew at GCU, coach of Alpo, did a very good job. 1 year, got GCU to the tournament for the first time in program history. So I think those are some candidates. There are some other ones. I know that Pat knows one. I could let him talk about that if he wants to, but I'm sure Parker can also think of some candidates.
Well, all I have to say is Brad Stevens has to leave the Celtics before he can coach a college team. So we'll see how the rest of the season plays out, but I don't see him going anywhere. He just signed an extension 2 years ago. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't have candidates, actually. The only thing that I would add is just the fact that I'm with Pat. I don't think that Brad Stevens does leave. The Celtics haven't quite been panning out with the talent that they do have on that roster, which, could be considered a little bit worrisome, but ultimately this team's very good. He's had a good tenure with the Celtics, and I think that ultimately they will turn around as a team, and with the success will come him not wanting to depart when he did lock up that extension like Pat mentioned. And I just think that that's definitely the biggest long shot of all the coaching candidates, because although there's plenty of other ones out there, I would say Stevens is definitely lower on that list as far as likelihood.
Yeah, looking at Indiana, I think that there are a few candidates. I could see BYU's head coach, Mark Pope.
Please.
I think he could make the jump. Another one that intrigues me is Nate Oates. If Indiana throws him enough money, he could do it. And
He seems like he's in a very happy place at Alabama, though.
I think he is. But if money talks. And if Indiana throws enough, he might be willing to do it.
Especially since I don't think you mentioned it, Ryan, but there was one booster who paid the $10 million
Mark
to buy out his contract.
Cuban. He will
No.
give whatever money it takes to get a top-tier head coach at Indiana. And with my brother there, he was talking about it. He's like Scott Drew all the way. I don't think he'll leave, but if he's thrown the money, you have no clue. I think it's more likely Bryce Drew goes there 1 year at GCU and they're in the tournament for the first time. Or, you know what? Take Oklahoma State's head coach, Mike Boynton. Go ahead. Don't want him in the Big 12 anymore. As a KU fan, I'm good with it.
Or Chris Beard. I think Chris Beard's
Chris
a really
Beard
good
could do
candidate, too.
But
I also think Chris Beard is the next head coach at UNC in waiting. I think that's a good fit.
oh, that's a good prediction. I like that a
And
lot.
I thought going into this year that Bobby Hurley was the head coach in waiting at Duke because, of course, he played there. And what he had done going into this year at Arizona State, especially leading up to this year, like with all the recruits and stuff,
Yeah.
he was certainly gaining traction. And this year was such a disaster, which had some stuff that was uncontrollable. But for sure, there's a lot of big name coaches that could get poached. And it's going to be really fascinating coaching carousel.
Dom, I hate to say this. Minnesota's top candidate is probably going to be Brian Dutcher.
I'm aware, Ryan. It's a tough reality that we have here. San Diego sports, nothing can ever be too good. So I'm.
Do you know who I think
I'm-
might make the jump to Minnesota? Porter Mosier at Loyola Chicago.
Yes.
He could make the
Mhm.
jump. Eric Musselman, Arkansas's coach, could, because they bursted onto the scene this year. It's going to be interesting. Two big programs, especially at Indiana, who are on the search for a new head coach. Now, our favorite thing to talk about of the week, the bracket has been released yesterday. And let me pull it up for everyone.
Where'd Pat go?
Here it is.
Look at that.
Don't you just
She's
love
beautiful.
Big breath.
She's
Don't you-
beautiful.
Oh, whoops, I lost it. My bad.
There you go, Ryan. Stay hot.
Beautiful. I got to ask, what seedings do you guys agree with most and disagree with most?
Mount St.
Well,
Mary's is too low.
Thanks, Pat. Yes, the Mount. I convinced some friends of the program at Three Guys One Mic that the Mount is their Cinderella team, and they're a 16 seed playing in the first four. But on a serious note, I think Oklahoma State is the very easy option. Certainly seemed like they're trending up towards possibly being a 2 team if they ended up beating Texas in the Big 12 championship game. They didn't, and I think it was very safe to assume that they were going to be a 3 seed. But then West Virginia ended up on the 3 line. Oklahoma State beat them twice in the final weeks of the season and had more losses than them. Yet somehow West Virginia is in front of Oklahoma State. It didn't make too much sense to me, and it still doesn't. I mean, that's the very obvious one. I think Virginia Tech being on the 10 line, I think everyone expected them to be around the 8 based on what they had done in the season. I don't think they're that great of a team, but I feel like 10 is a strong underseeding. And then I also thought Ohio would have been a 12 seed. You know, winning the MAC is certainly impressive. And then you also take a team like Winthrop that won the Big South, and you know, winning the Big South, like good for them for winning the conference. They only lost 1 game all year, but I mean, just about every other team in the MAC is better than every team in the Big South. So I thought that those 2 teams could have been flip-flopped. And Colgate on the 14 is very interesting because they were so dominant throughout the season.
Okay, so let me let's play a little game. You guys want to play a little game? So
Why
we
not?
got resident college basketball doof on the show. I'm gonna give you some of my biggest upsets on my bracket, and I want you guys to
Oh,
tell
wait,
me.
we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
We'll let you start with upsets though.
All right.
Yeah, we'll let you start.
Do you have any? No, hold on, Pat.
Yeah, Pat,
while
let's
you're
do it.
talking, do you have any teams that are under or overseeded?
Yeah, Mount St. Mary's is.
Yeah, we talked about that. What
Um,
another team?
Honestly, I think that Ohio is a little low seeded. I think Virginia is overseeded.
Okay.
I think Creighton's overseeded.
Yeah, because what is a Creighton,
What
Pat?
even is a Creighton? I don't know.
We do not stand Creighton on the.
We do
the
not
4-3
stand
show.
Creighton. They're one of my first round upsets.
You were supposed to wait on that, but
Well, that's one.
Well, I am in agreement with the first one Dom said, Oklahoma State, because they're a team that, for me, filling out the bracket is like, oh, it's just really tough because this is a team that got really hot and they were consistently playing really well against top teams. I mean, to be able to perform at the level that they did in the Big 12 is nothing short of incredible. I think that what they did was really good, and they got hot at the right time, and that goes a long way for seeding and for teams that you think can make a run potentially. So I think that they definitely could have been at least a 3, maybe a 2, but I think a 3 maybe would have been a little bit safer for them. That's one of the first ones that comes to mind. If you look at some other teams, I'm trying to see that I wouldn't necessarily agree with. It's tough because some teams, you look at a lot of different categories as to why they would be where they are, and a lot of it has to do with level of competition, so it can kind of complicate some things. I think that USC was a team that could have been significantly higher. They just didn't finish the season particularly strong, which makes sense why they get bumped back a little bit. So I understand the decision, but at the same time, they could have maybe been a 5, maybe a 4. That might be a little bit of a stretch, but maybe a 5. But I think that ultimately the common theme here is it's been correct. I like the seeding overall. There's not any head scratchers. And I think that a lot of these potential matchups are going to be really good. And anytime you look at certain seeding and you say, I don't know which team's going to go next, like you're flipping it every other day, you're switching before the games lock in. I think that that's a bracket well done. So I don't think there's really any others that are extremely noticeable and worth mentioning.
I have one team that I think is a little bit underseeded, and I think it's Georgetown. They caught fire, and they won the Big East tournament. I think that they could have been more a 10, maybe even 11, 10 seed area, but that's the main one for me. The one I agree with most, I would probably have to look at and say USC is who I agree with most because they were really trending towards a 4 seed, but they finished out really poor and lost in the Pac-12 tournament. So I think that they got a really good seed. I think another head scratcher for me might be Oregon. I think Oregon could have been a 6 seed in the region, in a different region than being a 7 seed in the West, but I'm just being nitpicky here. But I like a lot of the seedings. I think there are a lot of very good first-round matchups, especially at the 5 and 12 and 4 and 13 levels. Now, let's go ahead and do upsets. Pat, give us
Let me
some of
read
your
my big upsets, guys, and I want you guys to give me thoughts on them, okay?
okay?
All right, ready? I have Ohio beating Virginia in the first round.
okay.
Okay.
I have UCSB beating Creighton in the first round.
All right.
I have ECU beating Oregon. I have St. Bonaventure beating LSU, but that's an 8 and 9.
8 and 9 don't count.
Right. I have Georgetown beating Colorado.
I agree with that one.
I have MSU / UCLA beating BYU because BYU is a cult school. Made my opinions known live on air.
This is bracket. This bracket show.
This is bracketology for you. In that
Forget Joe Lenardi, man.
that's it. That's all I've got. Also,
Dom.
I hammered St. Louis in Vegas winning the tournament. You have to be 3 COVID positives on other teams.
It's gonna take a lot.
The odds on that, I bet, were incredible.
Yeah.
Dom, who are your upset picks?
Well, see, like a good bracketology man doesn't give away his bracket, but this is what we're paid to do, so I will do it.
You're getting paid? Where's my paycheck?
Yeah. Well,
Sorry,
you've missed too many
he's
shows.
not paying you.
I'll name 2 that Pat did not give. Oregon State, Pac-12 tournament champions over Tennessee. Tennessee's been a very inconsistent team and one of the more veteran-savvy players. John Fulkerson will be out for the tournament. So I think Oregon State, a team that's playing really well, has exceeded expectations all year. They were the 5th seed in a very interesting Pac-12 this year, and I think that they could certainly win their first-round matchup. 10-7 upset I like is Rutgers over Clemson. I frankly just don't think Clemson is that good. It's going to be a very ugly, low-scoring game, but I trust Ron Harper Jr. and Geo Baker to get enough baskets against Clemson to go ahead and win that game. And then any other upsets that Pat did not mention. I have one more. I actually have 2 more, but I'll let 2 of you guys go and see if you mention them, and you guys can circle around back to me.
Okay.
Parker.
I'll jump in. One that I was circling before they came out with the bracketology, before we knew the seeding, I was going to keep my eye on Villanova. The loss of Connor Gillespie is huge. And, this is still a really good team. Don't get me wrong. But ultimately, depending on what kind of seeding that they were going to have, they was going to determine that. They're playing Winthrop as a 5 seed, and Winthrop beating them in that one. And Winthrop is my Cinderella story, baby. Winthrop is then going to take on Purdue, and then they're going to advance as well. So I'm really going all in. I'm pushing the chips on Winthrop, but I'll go back to the reasoning for Villanova. It's the Gillespie injury. I feel like you lose so much out of a player like that at the worst of times right before the tournament. I think that creates turmoil, and I think Winthrop is definitely one of those teams that's on upset watch for good reason. So they're one of my little Cinderella stories where, in all likelihood, it won't happen. I'm going to be furious with myself. But we're going to stick with it anyway because that's what makes March Madness so much fun. Another one is Georgetown. They're hot right now. If it wasn't for them going on to win that tournament, they wouldn't have even had a chance to sniff at the tournament. But here they are. They will do some great things, and I have them upsetting Colorado. And that's tough because Colorado is a good team. They finished the year strong, being the runner-up to Oregon State, who was also another one of those lower seeds that got hot at the right time. But ultimately, I think that something's brewing over there. It only lasts in the round of 64, but hey, that'd be good for their program to be able to pull that off. I'm trying to think. Some other ones that come to mind, Virginia Tech. Going on in the second round to take on Ohio State. This is probably the craziest one other than maybe Winthrop because, having them get to the Sweet 16 is pretty crazy. But having them take on Ohio State, a very good team that proved it consistently all year. They had a little bit of hiccups near the end of the season that give me a reason to believe that there is a chance that they could potentially in the second round. And that's really the biggest reasoning for here. I think that Virginia Tech is a solid team, but more of this decision-making is based on the fact that I think Ohio State could have one of those off nights. And should they do that, I think a team like the Hokies is capable of making it count.
They'll rain 3s.
All right. I agree with Georgetown. I agree with you, Pat. I agree with Rutgers. I think Virginia Tech. I agree with Oregon State over Tennessee, and I especially agree with Winthrop over Villanova. One that I'm really looking at, Utah State over Texas Tech. The main reason is because Texas Tech has become really reliant on Mac McClung. And if he's not shooting well,
bro,
they struggle heavily. So I think Utah State could pull off an upset there.
I'm not a big believer in either of those teams.
Another one that I have to look at, I don't think it's going to happen, but something to watch out for is KU, especially with everything going on with COVID. That's strictly why.
That was the one that I have that no one else mentioned. And it's strictly because David McCormack will probably not be playing in the first game. And we know that Jalen Wilson, one of their more dynamic players on offense, will not be playing. Other than that, because I also think Eastern Washington is a very good 14 seed, but against a healthy KU team, I would have done that with no hesitation. I have USC advancing pretty decently far in this tournament. Well, I think we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Because I didn't mention that either when I gave mine, but I also do, so I'm curious.
I'll say this. The status of McCormack is still up in the air. They don't know if he's going to play or not. But I'm not going to pick KU to lose.
Right, naturally.
But it would not shock me if they did. And it's COVID related. Another one I have to look at that is tough for me to think about, but I like Morehead State over West Virginia. West Virginia tends to struggle in the tourney. They tend
do.
to struggle.
And
I like Morehead State a lot.
I don't think this West Virginia, like this build of the West Virginia team is built for a tournament because normally West Virginia is press, play defense, and those type of teams tend to do well in the tournament or tend to exceed their expectations because if you catch them on a bad night, they still have the recipe for success. But this West Virginia team is so offensive reliant because they suck defensively, which is unlike any West Virginia team. And Morehead State, they are extremely good at defense and they run an extremely low pace of offense. So even on a bad night, they can still have that recipe for a win. And I think Morehead State is certainly an upset caliber team, and I may or may not have the team that they would face in the second round, making a solid run in the tournament too. But it's also my team. So,
all right, so that'll do it for our upsets. Now I want us to look at the play-in games real quick. Let's make some quick picks on those. Who do we have winning the matchup of Norfolk State and Appalachian State?
I'm going to go with Happy Appy here. Winning the Sun Belt is much more impressive than winning. I think they're the MEAC. They're either the MEAC or the SWAC. And typically the teams from the MEAC and the SWAC, they're the two worst conferences in the nation by generally a long stretch. And I think that Appalachian State had to go on a very impressive run to win the Sun Belt. And I think they'll get it done here. Happy Appy. Really big missed opportunity. Put them against Michigan. Damn it.
Yeah, give me Appalachian State too.
Yeah, same for me.
I'm going to take Appalachian State as well. Next up, Wichita State versus Drake.
I'm actually going to take Drake here. I think that Wichita State showed some signs down the stretch that they just aren't really that good. I was honestly surprised they made it in the field. I mean, they lost to Cincinnati in a game that they frankly needed to win to make the tournament, and they still got put in the tournament. It just didn't make much sense to me. Cincinnati, very young team, they got crushed by Houston. It just kind of showed, and I just wasn't sure by that. And Drake, very impressive all year. Couple of losses in the middle of the season that weren't very good, but they did beat Loyola Chicago. They started off the season 18-0 and like 14-0 against the spread. You got to ride with Drake. The Drake.
Yeah, I think Drake, based on everything I've read, I think Drake has potential to make a decent run in this tournament. I don't know. Based on everything I've read, they could be Cinderella.
I don't know what you've read, but okay.
Give me Drake in this one.
I will also be taking Drake. I think that they have been a very good team consistently this season. Wichita State, not so much. I mean, seeing them lose to Cincinnati, seeing Cincinnati go on to get crushed in that tournament championship game, I just don't think I can rock with the Shockers on this one. I think it makes a lot more sense for Drake to advance.
They're the Shockers?
Yeah.
Wichita State Shockers.
Did you change your pick?
Yeah, I changed my pick.
Okay.
Wichita State Shockers.
Yeah, but I think Drake advances, and ultimately, I think that could be a really good game with USA.
The Shockers are going to get shocked and lose.
Yeah,
That's what I'm going to say.
Drake. The Drake.
I'm going
you
to
ever
take
talked to anyone before?
Drake because I just think that Wichita State is very inconsistent, and they proved that down the stretch. So I'm going to go with Drake.
Ryan,
Next
have you
up.
ever talked to anyone before?
What are you saying, Pat?
I just asked if you've ever shocked anyone before.
Why are you asking that?
I don't know. You ever touch a doorknob too fast?
I'm not falling for anything. I'm not
Shock
doing that.
someone?
He's trying to snipe you.
Yeah, he is.
Don't
I'm
snipe
not
me,
falling for
coward.
Hey, enough. Next up, Mount St. Mary's taking on Texas Southern.
Considering
Mount,
beating Michigan in the first round and then making a run to the Sweet 16, I'm going to go with the Mountain in this one.
Give me the Mountain. I'm going with them as well. We're rocking with them. What are you doing, Ryan?
Give me Mount. Give me the Mount.
Let's go, Mount.
baby. And the last playing game, Michigan State and UCLA.
Yeah, who would have thought that Michigan State and UCLA would be playing in the first four? And if this game were to be played in Dayton, like they normally are, that would have been quite the atmosphere there. But there's one team that's trending upwards and one team that's trending downwards. And I'm going to take the team that is trending upwards and frankly played in the much better conference all year. And that is Michigan State. Both these teams lost their opening round games in their conference tournament. So they're both going to come in with fresh legs. I think it's Sparty's a little bit more talented. A healthy UCLA team would have been around a 6 or a 7 seed, but unfortunately they aren't healthy. Chris Smith, their best player, got hurt a long time ago, and they're finally starting to feel the effects of that. Michigan State.
Listen, it does not matter to me who wins this game because I haven't beaten BYU regardless. But I'm going to go.
Why is that, Pat?
They're a cult school.
Okay.
For a culty religion.
Dude. Oh my gosh.
Oh boy.
You know,
So, Pat, who are you picking?
one specific person is walking through Taylor Mall while this airs.
Oh my gosh, Pat. Pat, who are you picking in this game?
I said Michigan State.
Okay, Parker, to you.
Yeah, no, I'm going Michigan State, and like if you would ask me this like at the midpoint of the season, I would have. Well, one, I wouldn't have thought that UCLA was going to be in this position, nor with Michigan State, for very different reasons. Exact opposite, of course, for seeding. But I do think that Michigan State caught some fire near the end of the regular season. It didn't translate to the tournament, but I do think that they are the better team right now. UCLA has had some injuries throughout the season. It holds them back in a game like this, and I think that everything gives me a reason to believe that Michigan State and the Spartans are the right pick right now.
I'm going to go with Sparty, playing a tougher conference, and they're trending upwards. UCLA's been trending downwards. So I'm going to go with Sparty in this one. All right. Next up, Cinderella teams. Let's do it.
I spoiled mine, but I mean, I guess
Let's do it.
Actually, no, that's not true. Technically, there is another team I can say.
Parker, I want you to start.
Okay, so Dom hinted at it with USC going rather far in his bracket. It's the same for me. I mean, they're 62. You would look at it and you'd be like, okay, well, you know, maybe they're dancing to go to the Sweet 16. That's not like crazy, but I actually then have them going on to defeat Iowa, and I have them taking on Gonzaga and eventually losing the Elite Eight because they're just far outmatched at that point. But I do think that this is a better team than that seeding gives them credit. Again, I understand because of how they finished the season, some inconsistencies, but ultimately this is a team that showed a lot. Their front court is unbelievable with Evan Mobley, who's going to be a top 2 pick right after Cade Cunningham, going first overall. I think there's a lot to like with this team. They dominate on the boards. They're able to get the ball low, and their guard play is not too bad. I think that there's a lot to like with this team, and you look at the path that they're going to be on. That Kansas game is on the iffier side with the whole COVID scare. So even if they go on to take on the Jayhawks, I think that there's a chance they win that game. And then you get to Iowa, and that's where, of course, this is a Cinderella story for a reason. That's a very difficult matchup for them. Luka Garza and Evan Mobley down low would be something to watch. They're 2 very different builds, 2 very different players down low. So I would love to see this because I think that it would be interesting for that matchup. But ultimately, that's my Cinderella. I already mentioned Winthrop, so I think that this is the right one to throw in there with that.
Pat, give us a Cinderella.
Who's my Cinderella team?
That looks like me.
All it takes, damn right it does. This is my Ryan Blancat. All it takes, 3 COVID positives, and these boys are winning the March Madness tournament. However, if I have to pick a team who is actively playing into the tournament, I got to roll with the boys at the Mount. I do have a Mount shirt coming in the mail. It is just not here yet.
No way.
No, you don't.
I do. I can show you the bookstore receipt right now.
Oh,
In the Mount bookstore. 3 COVID positives, and these boys, they're in. That's all it takes.
Ryan, I want to hear your Cinderella team because I have 2.
I have 2 as well.
Okay.
My first one is San Diego State.
Well, you suck, Ryan. Why would you take my team? No,
I love this team.
they're
they
so
are-
good. I love them.
They are, in my opinion, the best 3-point shooting team in the country. And Jordan Shackle leads them when he shoots, as he shot 47%.
Shackle, Splashel. Oh,
They've got a very good defense as well.
an insane defense. Elite defense.
It's an elite defense. And the thing is, they have experience beating high major teams as they beat 2 Pac-12 teams in UCLA and ASU early in the season by a comfortable amount. So,
Both by double digits.
yeah, both by double digits. I love San Diego State in this tournament. The one I really want to pick, but I can't, Loyola. I just can't do it.
Yeah, it was really hard to justify picking them over Illinois.
The thing is, this team, they're number 9 in KenPom, which comparing them to 2018,
Much higher.
is significantly higher when they were 31st. They have one of the best defenses in the entire country. And Cameron Krutwig is the guy on offense.
Mm-hmm.
I read that you could compare him to college basketball's Nikola Jokic.
Oh,
And
100%.
he is an elite passer. And they've got high-level shooters. So they were dealt a very brutal draw. Like, there's no way around it.
Yeah.
But I can't say them because they would have to go against Illinois and beat them.
I also
If they
kind of
were-
love the name Oral Roberts.
That team jacks up threes.
Do that? Do they hit
Oh
them?
yeah. Sometimes when they do, if they make threes, they can pose a really big problem to Ohio State.
The other one I'm going to go with that I actually am going to pick, Winthrop. I think they're a Cinderella team. I think that they have the ability to beat two very good teams. I think they're going to beat Villanova, and I think they'll beat Purdue. I think they will make it to the Sweet 16 at least. So I like Winthrop as well. Dom, go ahead and go to you. I'm sorry I stole State and Diego State.
No,
I just think
it's
that
okay.
team is so good.
I have them going to the Elite Eight. I genuinely believe they're a great matchup for West Virginia, and they're a very similar build to Houston. I genuinely believe that.
I agree with you. I agree.
So friendly reminder, just anyone filling out the brackets, a 12-plus seed has never made it to the Elite Eight. They've never won a Sweet 16 game. So please keep that in mind when you are filling out your brackets, everyone. Just a friendly reminder. So when we talk about our Cinderella teams as double-digit seeds, we are not picking them to go any further than that. 11 seeds have gone to the Final Four before, obviously Loyola Chicago. Most recently, Texas head coach Shaka Smart took VCU to the Final Four a couple of years ago in Indianapolis. Fun fact. So there's that. But my team, now, I had USC going to the Elite Eight like Parker did. I have San Diego State going to the Elite Eight like Ryan did. My one other high seed I have going to the Elite Eight is the Big East powerhouse, UConn Huskies, the 7th seed. I think that they can run through. I think that they got a very tough draw. Now, they're playing a Big Ten team in the first round in Maryland, but Maryland has beat some really good teams, but they've also been really inconsistent throughout the season. I think UConn can handle the business right there. And then they get Alabama. And Alabama, listen, great team, great defense, high tempo, but they have gone some games this year where they just don't make threes because that's their offense. Shoot threes, get to the rim. They're a big team that rebounds the ball extremely well, and they also just milk the clock. If UConn can get the rebounds, control the tempo of the game, they have the best player in this game, James Bouknight. I think they can do that. And then Texas, who I have. Some people have BYU, some people have Michigan State here. I have Texas. Texas is a very flawed team. Very odd coaching, very inconsistent on offense. They'll go on some weird dry spells. I think UConn can definitely win that game. And then I have them actually beating a team that I will hide my team. I have them playing in the Elite Eight for my purposes of this bracket. UConn could beat them. And UConn, I have UConn, 7th seed UConn going to the Final Four. You guys remember the last time they were a 7th seed? They won the national championship. Shabazz Napier, Ryan Boatwright. So it's not too far out of the realm of possibilities. UConn, James Bouknight. And you know what? The analytics actually really like them. They really like UConn. They're ranked 16th in the country according to KenPom. They've only lost 3 games all year when James Bouknight plays. And 2 of those were to Creighton. One of those was this past week in the Big East tournament in which he was dealing with cramps and he didn't play well. The other one was a buzzer beater in overtime. And then they lost to Villanova. It happens. But with James Bouknight, this team is not a 7 seed. Now, given their overall resume, they had to be a 7 seed. But with James Bouknight, they're not a 7 seed. UConn to the Final Four.
All right. Next up, I want some locks for the first round. And I got to go with Pat first here. I got to hear his logic here. Pat, any locks that you have for the round of 64?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple. Here, this bracket is hurting my eyes. Let me pull up mine real quick. Couple
Mount
locks
spread.
that I have. Huh?
Mount spread, first round.
Yeah, first of all, I'll take Mount on spread. Give me the Mount first round lock. Some other locks I have: the Billikens when they get put in for North Texas when they get taken out. Some more locks: Arkansas, big pig guy. Texas, because they don't need the power of God. They're going to beat Abilene Christian. Michigan State over BYU, because we don't support cults on this show. And then I've got, let's see some more locks. Ohio over Virginia, because Virginia is COVID ridden. That's my craziest lock I've got. Okay, then like I've got all the 1 seeds winning except for Michigan, because give me the Mount. Let's see, any other locks? Purdue, big chicken guy. Houston, I don't like Cleveland State's mascot. It scares me. That's it. That's all I got.
Parker, do you have any locks yourself?
I mean, okay, so like for locks, obviously, like based on like if you're going for like the easiest ever, you take all the 1 seeds because there's only been one upset ever. Shout out to UMBC, but if I'm looking at like more
Shout out to Mount St. Mary's for the second in a few days.
like fair seeded matchups. I mentioned Virginia Tech, so I really like that. It's hard to call like any of these like a 7 or a 10. Like those are like so hard to even consider locks. But I feel like I got to branch out a little bit. So I'm gonna say that I think Virginia Tech's a lock for that game. They played good against good competition this year. I see them winning that game. The way you rattled those off, Pat, was truly miraculous. I don't think I can really keep up with that. But when I look at other ones, I think that I'm going to stick with the 7-10 seeds. I think that Oregon is a very good team at 7. I think that they take care of VCU, and I think they do it pretty handily. So if I'm going to go for another closer seeded matchup as far as locks go, I think that that's another one of those. I'm pretty high on LSU. I don't want to necessarily classify as a lock because I do think that could be a very difficult matchup for them against St. Bonaventure, but I do know that LSU was hot in the SEC tournament, and they came so close to taking down Alabama. So I think that this is a team that has a lot of upside coming into the tournament. So although it doesn't meet your classic criteria for a lock, I do think that as far as close matchups, these are the ones I'm feeling pretty good about.
Dom, any locks? Give them to me.
Locks. I'll take Oklahoma State over Liberty. I think Liberty's a very good 13 seed, but I think Oklahoma State is one of the better 4 seeds we've seen in recent memory. I like UConn over Maryland. Obviously, I'm going to pick them to go to the Final Four. I'd hope they're a lock.
Yeah.
I really like USC against either Wichita State or Drake. I think those two teams are not the best 11 seeds we've seen recently. Like Parker mentioned, I think a good 6 seed is USC. And I really like Oklahoma against Missouri. Oklahoma beat a lot of really good teams in the Big 12. Now, Missouri beat some good teams in the SEC, but Missouri also lost to a lot of really bad teams in the SEC. I'm frankly surprised they're a 9th seed, and I think they're very overrated.
My first lock, Loyola Chicago over Georgia Tech. You guys know I'm extremely high on Loyola Chicago, and if they were not an 8 seed, I would take them a lot farther.
Sister
Next
Jean
up-
thanks you for that. However, she damns you to hell for your religion.
Oh my gosh! You
Ah!
can't say that.
What, does she not? Do you think Sister Jean likes Jewish people?
Pat, this is why you might get suspended.
Suspended? You're on drugs.
What is happening? I mean,
Pat.
I knew this episode was going to be something else compared
But
to
Pat is on another level tonight. Another lock of mine, I got to look at North Carolina over Wisconsin. I think North Carolina's turned it up, and I'm just not a fan of Wisconsin. I don't think they are that great of a team.
Watch
So
out for Demetric Trice, though. If he starts raining threes, UNC's done.
If he's raining threes, then yes, but I don't think he's going to be raining threes against North Carolina. Another lock that I'm going to go with, I'm going to say Iowa, but I'm going to take Iowa spread over GCU.
No.
And I'm taking a troll at some of my friends that go to GCU. So that's a troll at them. And then my last lock, looking at it, just because I am extremely high on this team, give me Georgetown as a lock.
No.
I think they are going to win that game and beat Colorado.
I actually picked Colorado to win that game. That is the only 5 seed I have.
Oh.
That's the only 5 seed I have.
Oh, you're killing me, kid.
Dude, I think that veteran savvy team with McKinley Wright being the best player on the floor, and they're also very good at the free throw line, so they won't choke away leads.
Okay, that's
Hey, I
fair.
hate to be this guy to correct myself, but Sister Jean. Oh wait, never mind. Never mind. She probably still doesn't like Jewish people. Never mind.
We're just going to move on from that. Dom, this is mainly for
I
you.
was thinking about a different Sister Jean who grew up Jewish. So
Thanks, Pat.
This is mainly targeted towards you. But if any one of us were betting men, because none of us are, best bets for the first round and maybe even throughout the tournament, what would you say, Dom?
I mean, I've been looking through spreads, and I think that the spreads that I gave you for my upset picks. So you look at ECSB +7. I think that's a great pick there. And then I also think GCU +14.5 is a good bet. I know Ryan, you just said to cover, but Osborne Midgard, 7-foot center for GCU. GCU also a very good defensive team. I think they could cause some problems for Iowa and just keep it close, like a 10-point game. I'm not a fool. I'd take Iowa to win that game. Ohio +7.5. Like I said, I took that game. And then, I mean, we also have Oregon State. Their spread, I like them a lot. They're 7.5-point dogs. I mean, I think is pretty easy. And then Winthrop, they're 6-point dogs. I picked them. So I think that is a very safe pick. I also am a big believer in Purdue. It seems to me that you guys aren't, from what you guys have said on this podcast. But I actually really like them, and I think 7.5 points is a good spread for them. Maybe Oklahoma State too. Yeah, I know. You're a big Purdue chicken guy.
huge Purdue guy. Cage-free, steroid-free.
Pat, I have a question. Why didn't you pick Wisconsin as a lock of yours? You love cheese.
Wisco? Oh, I have them winning. They're just not a lock.
Big cheese guy over there.
The only reason they aren't a lock is because I'm like lactose intolerant. So I have a love-hate relationship.
Getting some very personal information. Getting some very personal information out from Pat. He's lactose intolerant. He's not a big fan of people who practice the Mormon religion.
I didn't say that.
I mean,
I'm not a big fan of cults.
My bad. I tried to at least dance around the bush, and then he's like, "I'm not a big fan of cults."
All right, that is going to end this episode for Blaze Radio. So everyone who's listening on Blaze and in Taylor Mall, thank you very much for listening. And if you want to hear our Final Four picks and champion picks, go on to YouTube and watch the rest of our show. We will be back next week. All right, I just segued into it, guys. Final Four, and I really want to start with Pat. So we're going to start with Pat.
My Final Four, I have Gonzaga and Texas. And then I have Texas Tech and Illinois. So
I thought you hated the Fighting Illini.
I
No,
I hate their name.
We love the Fighting Illini at Park Place.
Right.
Love
Park
them.
Place were big Illini guys. But I just can't stand their name. So in my Final Four, I do have – so I have Texas Tech taking out Baylor in the Elite Eight. Honestly, I'm honestly debating taking Baylor even out of the Elite Eight, having them lose to Purdue in the Sweet 16. But at this
chicken guy.
Huh?
Big chicken guy.
Huge chicken guy. Also considering putting Ohio State over Texas Tech, beating Baylor, and putting Ohio State in my Final Four rather than Texas Tech. But as of right now, I have Illinois playing Gonzaga in the final. even considering Gonzaga getting upset by Texas in the Final Four. But currently I have the Illini over Gonzaga winning.
All right, other Park Place boy. Who's your Final Four? We already know one, but give us the other three.
Yes, you got UConn. I'll give you their opponent, and that'll be Gonzaga. That's the surefire pick. Looking at it, who picked whom? Currently, 53% of brackets, 67% of brackets have Gonzaga in the Final Four on ESPN. And I'm honestly surprised that's not more, because you look at it, and Iowa's in 14. Let's see, who's the 3 seed in that region? Kansas is in 7. The 4 seed in that region is Virginia, and they're in 3. The 5 seed is Creighton, and they are in 1.4. The 6 seed is USC, and they're in 1.5. The 7 seed, remind me who the 7 seed is?
Oregon,
they're in 1.2. The 8 seed is the Bonnies. The 9 seed is Oklahoma, they're in 0.8, and then the 9 seed is Missouri, they're in 0.6. So, right, yes, Missouri. My bad. Gonzaga's in 67%, so I'm not bold by doing that. Going to the other side, I have the Fighting Illini, of course, because I think the world of them. I'll take Batman and Mini Shaq. That is Ayo Dosunmu and Kofi Coburn. And, of course, they've got Donkey in Andre Curvelo. He's kind of the wild guy, but gets the job done. He's the sidekick to him. And then the other team, this may be a surprise to you guys, but I have the 3 seed, Arkansas Razorbacks. I think that they're a team that's peaking at the right time. They were just had an off day against LSU, and if you have an off day, that offense is going to cook you. So what happened? They almost came back and won that game. They did not, but Arkansas had won 10 straight SEC games leading up into that point, and I believe had won 13 of 14 going into that game, and they're just super impressive, and I think that they can make it. And then, do you want me to go with my championship picks or just
we'll
Final
do that
Four?
next. We'll do that next.
Okay. So I have UConn, Gonzaga, Arkansas, and Illinois.
Parker,
Saves us 10 minutes at least if we just do it right now.
I will say, I do this every year. So, I make it as soon as they open up, as soon as I get the chance, and then I just constantly change stuff periodically the days leading up to the actual lock of the games and then starting to play after the playing games. So I'm probably subject to doing that. Maybe not with the Final Four, but there's one that's really hard in particular that I'll make sure to mention. I'll start with Gonzaga. I have them making the Final Four. I'm always really high on this team because of the way they're constructed under Mark Few. There's a lot to like with them. They have a really good balance of young talent. You got guys like Jalen Suggs, who's one of those lottery picks. You've got some of the National Player of the Year candidates with Kispert and Timmy. There's so much depth on teams like this, and they have guys that aren't a bunch of young guys, not a bunch of underclassmen. They have a lot of depth and experience, and I think that goes so far in tournaments like this. When it comes to March Madness, I look forward to that. So I have them making it. That's a clear-cut one. There's not too much head-scratching with that one. Then I have them taking on Alabama. This is a team that was red hot all season. They played extremely well. This is a region where I'm a little bit uncertain of how I want to go about it with the East. So that one could be subject to change. I ultimately think I probably will not, but I'll definitely contemplate it leading up because there's a lot of good teams. But I think the Alabamas look very good so far, and they cruised in the SEC tournament. This is a team that's playing really good basketball, and I think that they can definitely make a run. Their record against top 25 opponents is something that could be a little bit of a red flag as far as how they consistently deal with high-level competition in this tournament to get to that point. But ultimately, I think that they have the tools necessary to get to that point. Then when you look at the other side of the bracket, I do have Baylor winning this one. Arkansas is a game that intrigued me. I ultimately didn't go that direction. As of right now, I think that Baylor looks so good. They're one of, if not the best, three-point shooting teams in the nation. You have Dave Mitchell, you have Jared Butler. There's so much to like with this team. Just the way that they're able to hit the three ball, I think they can just shoot lights out and just run teams off the court. Their defense has slipped a little bit, but it is still one of the more consistent defenses out there. They're able to swarm the ball. They switch really well. I think that this is like Gonzaga. These have been the two teams that have been the consensus all year as being the top two. So this shouldn't come as a surprise for them making it. We see a lot of chaos in these as far as these one seeds getting this far. Ultimately, I think they'll be the other one with Gonzaga, and that kind of indicated what I'm going to go next. I wanted to go with Illinois as well. There's so much to like with them. I feel like if they're in a different region, then I'm probably going to go that way. But I mentioned Oklahoma State, and me being the impulsive person I am with picks like this, I switched it up. I have them going that far. I think that they should have been seeded 1 or 2 higher, and I think that they're very much capable as a 4 seed to go on that run. The big obstacle is 100% going to be Illinois. I think that Kofi Coburn, Ayo Dosunmu, is going to be a lot to handle for Cade Cunningham in that squad. But I think ultimately they've given me reason to think that they have a good chance at it. They've taken down some giants, and what's not one more right there? Of course, I'd also have to beat another good team in Houston, which I have going that far. But ultimately, I think that this team is built to be able to do it.
For me, it's tough because I still have 3 of them up in the air. First one that I'm going to go with is Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga is the best team in that region. I think that Mark Few is an incredible coach. They've just got that talent with that big 3 in Kispert, Suggs, and Timmy. The East, I'm going to go – it's tough because I would say Michigan, but there's just so much uncertainty with the status of Isaiah Livers.
He's out.
They don't think is he out for the entire tournament?
Yeah, he's done.
He's done?
Yeah.
That has an effect for me. But they still kept it close with Ohio State and one good shot away from beating them and taking and heading to the Big Ten championship. Sorry. The Midwest, I'm going to go with Illinois for sure. But I'm going to go back to the East real quick. And I'm going to go with Alabama. I like Alabama a lot. And I think that if they can get past that tough UConn team, then I think they are in a very good set. I think that they have been one of the best teams this year and just come out of the water. And in the Elite Eight, you could see a battle for the 2 top candidates for Coach of the Year with Howard and Oates. And then the Midwest, I said I'm taking Illinois. The South is probably the toughest one for me to pick. I could say Baylor, but I don't want to take Baylor because I don't think they'll get there. And I agree with Dom. I'm taking Arkansas. This Arkansas team is very strong. They've caught fire, and I think that they're at a point where they can make a run. I think their toughest opponent is going to be the Buckeyes, but I think they are very well equipped to take down that team. And Baylor, they've had an incredible season. They are a great 3-point shooting team. Scott Drew has done an incredible job. I think that Arkansas pulls off an upset in the Elite Eight over the Baylor Bears. So my final 4 is Zaga, Bama, Illinois, Arkansas. All right. Championship teams and championship pick. Dom, let's go to you.
All right, so just going to repeat my final 4. I have Gonzaga versus UConn and Illinois versus Arkansas. And I will take in the first matchup Gonzaga over UConn. They're just a much better team here. Their guard play is significantly better than UConn. And even though I still think one of the better players in this game is James Bouknight, however, Jalen Suggs is better. It's going to be a fantastic game. UConn wants to get far. They tend to not get tripped up, but I'm also going to take the better coach in Mark Few in this game. And then the other one, I have Arkansas versus Illinois. And the height and length and speed of Illinois, I think it's going to be too much for Arkansas to handle. I think Ayo Dosunmu is going to be good enough, and then Kofi Coburn is going to dominate down low. I think that Illinois moves on to face Gonzaga in the championship, and in my opinion, those are the 2 best teams this year, and I think that those 2 teams deserve to face off in the championship, and they will face off, and I will take Illinois to win it all. They will cut down the nets in Indianapolis, in Lucas Oil Stadium, in what should be a thrilling game. My final score is 85-80. I think that when you look at it, Illinois is more battle-tested than Gonzaga. Gonzaga hasn't had to play the stretch of 4 to 5 games where you're playing very solid teams like Illinois has had to do all year through their non-con and through their conference schedule, because Gonzaga played a tough conference schedule, but they never played 3 to 4 straight tough games like Illinois has had all year. And Illinois has also had the advantage of playing without their best player and making the other guys step up, and they did that, and they crushed Michigan. So I think that Illinois is more battle-tested, and I think they're almost as good as Gonzaga. So I think the Fighting Illini will be national champions.
Parker, let's go to you.
For me, common theme here, Gonzaga is also going to be playing the national championship game. For me, this is a team that, like I said, the preseason, I was so high on them. I'm usually high on them every year because of the way they're constructed. But I'm not going to keep repeating myself. I think that Gonzaga has a lot to like. There's a lot of good reason with their depth, and I see them taking on Baylor. And it may seem kind of boring. Oh, the 1 and the 2, like the top 2 teams from start to finish of the year. But it's just so hard to stray away from teams that I know what they're going to bring. I know a lot of people kind of going back to Gonzaga like to say, oh, they don't play anyone. I get it, like West Coast Conference. But they're 4-0 against top 25 opponents. When they do have their non-conference games against some of the bigger teams in the other Power 5 conferences, they show up to play. I absolutely can't stand when people say that. Yes, they're not technically wrong by saying it because they do play in a weaker conference than some of these other teams like Baylor. But they dominate. There's a reason why they're going to make it this far, and there's a reason why Baylor is going to. I watched quite a few games as far as Baylor goes in the Big 12, and they look consistently good every night, and you just know what you're going to get with them. They shoot lights out. They run teams off the floor, and the defense, kind of like I mentioned, isn't quite the same, but I do ultimately see them clashing with Gonzaga. These are 2 teams that are at the top of the KenPom for a reason. Defense, offense, you name it. It's going to be so exciting because I love how they have the tiebreaker for picking the final score, as if picking a perfect bracket isn't already impossible enough. You got to do that too. And I see this being a rather high-scoring game because these 2 teams can shoot lights out, and I ultimately see it going back and forth, punch for punch, and it's going to be a really exciting one. And if this is the matchup, this is the one that we've been hearing about potentially seeing all season, so it'd be really cool should these 2 powerhouses meet up.
Parker, hold on, Parker. What if I told you that Baylor is number 4 in KenPom right now?
Are they actually? Because they were 2 pretty much all of the season, and then I actually thought that at one point they would have surpassed Gonzaga.
They did pass Gonzaga for a couple of weeks, but
Okay.
as it stands right now, Gonzaga is at 38, Michigan is at 32.2, Illinois is at 32.0, and Baylor is at 30.9. So,
Okay. Well, I do think that these 2 teams stand to match each other up, and I will say that the Illinois one is super hard for me. I know I already said that, but ultimately I couldn't go with them taking on Baylor. And if that is the case, if they do take Oklahoma State, as good as the game as I think it will be as 2 familiar opponents, I think they advance and they take on Gonzaga. But ultimately the Zags win this one.
Pat, on to you, my friend.
Yeah, I have Illinois winning over either Gonzaga or Texas, just because we're big Illini people in this house. They win a lot of good games. I've seen a lot of Illinois play, not a whole lot of any of these other teams. So, go Illini.
Who do you have winning the matchup of Zaga and Texas?
I haven't quite decided yet. As of right now, it's Gonzaga. That's the easy pick. It's the 1 seed. But I really like Texas this year because I've watched them play a couple games, and they've looked really good. Sorry, you guys kept me overtime. I had to make some waffles.
All right. I have Zaga and Bama facing off. I'm going to take Zaga in this one. Then I've got Arkansas and the Fighting Illini. Give me Illinois. So I've got Zaga and the Fighting Illini in the championship. It's such a tough pick. Because looking at it, it's Io versus Jalen Suggs and Kispert, and then Kofi against Timmy, but also they've got Curbelo. And like Dom said, the Illini have just been so battle-tested throughout this year, and without their best player in Io DeSumo, they whooped Michigan. It's tough, but I'm also going to take the Fighting Illini. This team has just been
I like being
super
low.
impressive this year. And I think that the emergence of Kofi Coburn becoming even more dominant throughout the course of the season has been essential. But just the ability for them to have won big games without their ultimate star player helps. So I'm going to take the Fighting Illini to win the national championship. Pat?
No, my second bracket, I have them out winning it. Okay? Just let's play.
Defense bracket. In other words.
In my upset bracket, I have the
It's not an
Jayhawks. winning.
upset.
No, in my upset bracket, I have the Jayhawks winning it all.
What an upset.
I laughed and just thought that was funny.
It's not really like an upset, but
Dom, do you know who I have? Do you know who I have in that bracket facing them in the championship?
is it the San Diego State Aztecs?
It is the Aztecs.
Go
Yeah,
off.
and I
man.
What do you say?
I don't
said
know.
go off King.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, everyone, thank you so much for sticking around. That is it. We have gone through everything. Thank you very much for listening. We were stripped away of March Madness last year. It is back, and we are excited. Dom?
No, I was just pointing to Fernando Tatis Jr.
Yeah, I thought you noticed that. I noticed that.
No.
I figured that's what was
Just
going on.
no. Too bad they're just the second team in their division.
Okay.
Right behind
All
you.
right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. Enjoy the start of March Madness. We will be back next Monday, but I might have the opportunity to go to a tournament game this weekend, so I'm pumped. Everyone, have a great rest of your week.
Go Billikens.